In the heart of Queens, across from Veterans Grove Park in Elmhurst, sits a house with an illustrious past. This was the home of Walentyna Janta-Połczyński and her husband, Aleksander. For over 50 years, this was the center of Polish literature and culture in New York City. And unless the community saves it, it's on the verge of being destroyed.
Aleksander and Walentyna were veterans from World War II. They were both Polish nationals. Walentyna worked for the Polish underground, and Aleksander fought in the Polish army for the French. And this house was very much known as the center of Polish culture in America after World War II.
But it was during World War II that Walentyna and Aleksander made their mark.
Poland and the world learned the meaning of a grim new word, blitzkrieg.
Aleksander's family was forced to flee when the Nazis invaded in 1939. He spent much of the 1930s traveling around the world as a reporter for a Polish magazine named Literary News. But it was Walentyna's role during World War II that led to a deeper understanding of the Nazi atrocities at the Warsaw Ghetto.
She was the personal assistant, interpreter, translator, confidant, intermediary for General Sikorski.
At that time, Nazis had imprisoned Polish Jews to live in the Warsaw Ghetto, where over 100,000 people died of starvation or disease. If they survived the ghetto, they were murdered at Nazi concentration camps. A young Polish diplomat named Jan Karski was assigned to meet with Jews held captive in the ghetto and report firsthand on what he saw there. But there was a problem. Jan's reports were written in Polish, and they needed to be translated into English for Americans and other Allied nations. That's when Walentyna volunteered to help.
Walentyna translated Jan Karski's reports from his time in Poland, in the Polish underground, where he was an eyewitness to Nazi atrocities such as the destruction of Warsaw and also the presence of concentration camps in Poland. And Walentyna was the one who translated those reports into English so that the Allies could know about it.
When the war was over, they both eventually ended up in Elmhurst, Queens, where they opened an antique bookstore that specialized in Slavic culture and history. Their home on 43rd Avenue in Elmhurst became an important stopping place for Polish cultural elite fleeing communist Poland.
Writers, artists, visiting students, professors, but this was a hub of the artistic, cultural, literary Polish émigré world in New York.
Aleksander died in 1974. Walentyna remained in the home and continued to host the Polish culture elite for another 40 years. She died at the age of 107 in April 2020.
And none of it is being acknowledged or has been lost to history, and we're now trying to preserve it and bring it to life.
The ultimate fate of this house, if it is not saved or created as a landmark, in all reality, it will be demolished.
Community activists are now enlisting the help of New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission to name the Janta home as a cultural landmark and save it from the wrecking ball.
So it's very important to save a house like this because there's nothing like physically encountering real history. History should be real to people so that we don't forget it. If this building is preserved, it will ensure that it will stand here in perpetuity for future generations as they walk down the street to learn about who these people were, the contributions they not only made to their home countries, but also to ours.
Their names are not splashed in the textbooks, there haven't been made movies about them, but their input, their sacrifices were just as equally as important for the fight for justice and freedom and equality.
Email insightelmhurst@gmail.com to find out how to add your name to the many people who think that the Janta home in Elmhurst is worth designating as a cultural landmark in New York City.